questions? I'm going to call to order this regular scheduled meeting of the Henderson County Board of Education. Today is September 19th, 2016. If we could have a moment of silence, please, and remember all of the kids. Very much. Ms. Rebecca Johnson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we need to approve our agenda for this evening. Is there any changes, anything we need to discuss before we go forward? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as listed. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. A second. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Agenda set. Student and staff recognition, Ms. Martin.
Sure, good evening. We have several students we'd like to recognize this evening and some very special staff members as well. We're going to start with our junior chef team that went to the State Department, and I've asked Ms. Jenny Johnson to come on up. She is the instructor for the Culinary Arts Program at Henderson County High School. They went to the state to compete, and I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about them and then bring up who you have here with you, please.
Like she said, we went to the state fair and we competed. And today I have only one student, Brianna Scott, and if Brianna would come up. There were 4 others on the team, but they have obligations. They are employed elsewhere. And Brianna.
With you today.
I have my mom, Christy Todd, and my dad, Alan Todd.
Thank you all so much. And as the board is very aware, they actually prepared chicken dish that they presented at the state fair. They placed 3rd overall of all the culinary arts, and we're very proud of the students and Ms. Johnson for the leadership you provide for our students. The next student we'd like to recognize is Amy Chandler Cheetah, and tomorrow she's going to be recognized as the Judge's Scholar. Miss Brittany Haley, if you don't mind to come forward, I'm going to let you introduce your student. I told her a little bit ago, I went and introduced myself and asked her how her day went. She said, oh, well, it's really not until tomorrow. And I said, well, you really like it because they'll declare the whole day, her day in Henderson County. So introduce, who will it be?
We have a 5th grader with us today, Miss Marietta Coots. She was chosen from her 2 5th grade teachers based on several qualities. Just her leadership qualities. She's a wonderful role model for her members of her peers. She does many, many things at our school, and so her teachers felt like that she was well deserving of this reward.
I have my mom and my dad.
And your names are?
Lisa and Jason.
Awesome. Thank you all. Next, we would like to recognize our Family Resource and Youth Service Center directors. This is the 25th year that this program has been put in place across the state of Kentucky. We are very blessed in Henderson to have the quality directors that we have. They service our families in many, many different ways. And I'll just call them by name and have them come up, and then I'm going to give them the opportunity to say a few words if they would like to. So I'm going to start back with Kathy Gibbons, who is one of our veteran Family Resource Center youth members. She's at South Middle School. Ms. Gibbons, if you would come up front, please. Shauna Evans represents Henderson County High School. Mackenzie Winhouse. She serves 2 schools, A.B. Chandler and Jefferson. She's the Family Resource Director. Then we have Stephanie Dow. Please come forward for Thelma B. Johnson Early Learning Center. Next to her is Melissa Walker from East Heights. Come on up. Sandy Hazelwood, South Heights. And Samantha Sigler is next, and she represents Cairo. She covers Cairo and Niagara. And Lynn Swanson, come on up. She represents Bidgate and Spotsville. These are directors that work diligently behind the scenes with kids, from the simplest things as maybe some school supplies to some very family needs, some very personal things that you do, lots of home visits. And our school district really wouldn't be what it is without the work that you all do. You make a significant impact on our kids and on our families. Now, have one of you all been chosen to talk? Sean.
I'm starting to get a complex about that.
No, I'm just kidding.
We thank you very much, and we appreciate the 25 years that Kentucky has given us. And I believe that there's been somebody in our district for 25 years as well. There's been schools, I think we were right on the ground level with that, so it's really exciting. All of us do many different things, just like Ms. Stanley said. We're just here to break down any barriers that a student might have to learning, and that can mean a lot of things. And we just do whatever is needed for our students. Anybody else?
Since I'm the oldest, I get to say something.
And many of the longest. And almost everybody, it's so funny because almost all of us have been in this job for quite a while. And it is a great job, and it's rewarding, and it's scary some days. But it's all about kids.
One thing I know that is very much appreciated by the staff also is the amount of time that you all put in for our kids and families. It is, I'm not telling anybody in this audience something that they don't know, but the Ready Fest that is put together by the centers and all of the collaborative partners and the community people across our county is overwhelmingly a shining star for us in Henderson. Our families come, and we had over how many this year, you all? Over 1,000 students that came through that received everything they needed to get ready to start school. I mean, that just sums up their work. So ladies, we want you to know, and the board appreciates your work and the time that you put in. You're welcome. And the cookies and lemonade are in honor of you all. That's right. Thank you.
They are also the driving force behind our volunteers too. So they do a lot of work with our community volunteers. So
I try. You do very well.
Thank you all.
Very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Moving on to public participation and recognition of guests. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Hearing none, I do want to ask our student ambassadors from Henderson County High School to stand and be recognized. Ms. Hadley Comer. Thank you. Kelsey Steinholz. Mallory Williams. Thank you all. the minutes from the prior meeting. If everyone had a chance to review those, and are there any changes? You changed it.
It was just adding, in the portion about the trade zone, it was just a clarification that the Riverport was seeking approval of the trade zone, just, or case looking down, down the road, so I look back. There would be no question as to who was supplying, the presence of the district was, it was an outside entity.
Sounds good. I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes as listed, then, please. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Ms. Sally. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Committee reports. Don't have any listed. Is there anyone, what members do you all have committee reports to present? Okay. Moving on to the other reports section, construction reports. Mr. Craig Thomas and Mr. Neil Guest. You're up.
So as y'all know, we received bids. Is that better?
Yes.
As y'all know, we received bids for the Spotsville Elementary Thursday afternoon. After going back and analyzing them and reviewing them, it is obvious that I missed the probable cost opinion a little bit, or quite a bit. I mean, we've had some elements that kind of created that. Bear in mind, I did that last probable cost opinion well over 2 months ago. KDE has set on it. Since that time, we've had increases in steel prices. We've also lost out on some subcontractor and trade contractor participation because we had several that had pulled plans that were asking questions early. They were very interested in it. They got down here close to the end. They filled their plates with other jobs and stuff like that. They would not even price because they had filled their plates. So those elements like that I can't control. The number I gave, I mean, was very relevant numbers at the time. Another thing that I gave you on a handout, y'all have to take those handouts and bear in mind the timing of receiving the bids and gathering some other information. I gave you example of 4 other projects, 3 of which were bid, and pretty much ran the same, and these are Codell jobs, and then around the area and stuff. But it shows, even with a price that is higher than what I had on the probable cost opinion, we have still received bids that are valuable bids and good bids for the project. I mean, it's not way out of line on that. But along with that,
Neil, what was our the cost per square foot did our project come in?
I'm sorry, it came out to $198 a square foot.
And originally, non-county contingency, I had it listed at 182. Is that correct?
Sorry.
The original that I had months back from January listed it at 182 without contingency. The contingency was 192.
I believe that is correct.
His latest estimate would have been from the BG3, and I don't have that in front of me, but I think it was 14.5, and we've got 78,000 square feet.
76.
14,522, yes, total construction cost.
$187 a square foot, maybe.
Board, I know we've got lots of questions questions, and then we've got to figure out what our options are. Does anyone want to start? And we'll do have other information you all want to present before we start asking questions.
Okay, one other thing before we go forward. There are 3 of these bid packages that we will end up having to rebid. One has to do with the windows. At the very last bit of this project, the glazing fill that we had specified on the windows ended up not being eligible in the United States right now. All glass has to be shipped to China and then back. So we didn't get any bids on that package. We received one for the kitchen equipment. We feel like it's a little high, but we did not accept the bid or even read it aloud because they bid out the bid package, or they had filled out the bid forms improperly. Because of the day of the bid, we couldn't even figure out what package it went to or what it. And then the other is the elevator. Of course, the elevator is an easy number to put to place, but those 3 bids, we will put those right back out immediately. Thank goodness those aren't critical milestone things. You know, if it works out that the board decides to move forward, we can get contracts written for the other trade contractors and move forward.
You mind if I add a little bit to that? Number one, the number that you have in front of you includes cost opinions for those 3 bid packages that he just referenced. So when you look at those, the elevator, he included $90,000 for. The glazing, he included $440,000 for. And I think in the meantime, he's had 2 companies tell him that's roughly what that bid package will be when it goes out to rebid. And the third one, the kitchen equipment, I believe he had $412,000 or something like that in that number. I believe that kitchen package will be closer to the 350 number when we actually get some bidders, and that's something we're both going to work on doing. So when you look at that number, we still have those 3 bid packages, but we feel comfortable that we have allotted for those. Now, I know that everyone's looking at this project, and you've looked at it and you're saying we're over budget, and yes, we are, but we're within 5% of what the cost opinion was. And to be quite honest with you, that's really a good number, and we still have good value in this project in the things that you're getting in it. With the extra insulation, we've got the daylighting and the glazing. Even though we can't get the nano gel that we thought we were going to be able to get in that glazing, we'll look for other options to achieve similar pieces. So even though it's over budget, we still have good value. If we were 10%, 11%, 12% over budget, then we would really start looking at what's going wrong, or what happened. And because of the cost opinion being so high, when you're only 5% over, that's still a large number, and we understand.
And that cost opinion that we did on the BG3, that was in June 22nd. What time?
So I think they're aware we've lost 2 months due to the Department of Education not being able to process it due to losing an employee, and also the process of moving the facility. So we just unfortunately had a bad turn of events there.
So explain to us what the value engineering would do or not do for us.
Well,
We decided to go back and try to get these numbers lower.
can I address a few things in regards to that? What your options are? Obviously, your first option is just to award the bid packages that we have bid and wait to receive the other 3 bid packages. And I think Mr. Nance is here to go over your finances, to show you a means of moving forward. If this project was over budget and you did not have the money to afford the project, then we can go into competitive negotiation. And by doing that, you lock in the contractor's price, and you negotiate with them to get it down. That's not an option because you won't have the money to do the project. So that is a KRS that we can implement. So our next option is to reject all the bids. If you reject all the bids, keep in mind that we may make changes to the project and it can come back in higher than what it is. And that has happened multiple times where you have rejected bids, you take items out of the project, you put it back on the street, the bidders bid it in, and their prices go up. So there's no guarantee by doing that you'll get lower prices. Your next option is to award the bids and to negotiate with those low bidders to reduce the cost. That is the safest route to reducing the cost. Because their numbers locked in, it can't go up higher. If we take something out, then they truly have to work with us to some degree. Now, they may have more power than we do, but we still have some power where we can argue, debate, and influence them to continue to reduce those numbers. So, again, if we were 11 or 12% over, I would probably tell you to throw all of them out, rebid it, and go forward. But there's another issue that I think Mr. Nance could possibly happen is that time, in this case, is important and of the essence because, as everyone knows, the feds are talking about a rate hike, and if it goes up a small, a quarter point, that could have a significant impact on your finance cost of a couple $100,000 maybe. So for every dollar you think you might be saving, you could be giving it up in your finance charges. So when I looked at the bids and I looked at the packages, I thought the structural steel was high, but the mechanical and plumbing was low. The architectural portion of the project is high. The roofing part of it was high. I talked to a roofer. I think I can get some money out of the roof. Without getting in to get enough value that we built into the project, like the 4 inches of insulation versus 2 inches of insulation, that would be the next piece that I would look at the value engineer, but you're going to give up the value because that is money that's going to save you money moving down the road. If you had 5 alternate bids, at this point, I wouldn't accept any of the alternates. The one that brings the most value to the table was alternate number 5, and it's to have the variable speed compressors versus 2-speed compressors. It was roughly $40,000. That's something that a month from now, 2 months from now, you can come back and add it to the project, pay for it out of contingency, and therefore not have to bond that money. So it wouldn't increase your bonding, but it's the value you can add back into it. The other 4 alternate bids, I'm not sure have enough value to them that I would bond that money. And once you got into the project and you felt like you wanted to do those, again, you could pay for those out of contingency. Keep in mind, your contingency is, at the end of the day, we want to be able to buy furnishings and some equipment out of that money. So we need to set aside probably 50% of that contingency for that. So.
Craig, it doesn't specifically say on the last page what the package alternates are. It just gives a price.
Okay.
And so can you share with the board?
Okay, love to. Alternate number 1 was the cupolas. If you remember, we had a small cupola on the lower gable and we had a large cupola up on top, and we did the large one as an alternate. I believe it was around $44,000. Is that correct? 57. About $57,864.
That's for a larger cupola that we didn't decide. We went with the smaller one to begin with.
That is
But
correct.
we could have that if we would.
You could add it if you, okay, yes.
So that's what we already knew about.
The next one was for a light fixture, 8554. When you walk into the building, if you remember, we have that little center point where the 4 corridors cross. We put a special light fixture right there. And instead of putting in the base bid, we put another light fixture in the base bid so we could see how much that nice fixture was. That's the cost of the night fixture. So you could add that fixture later, and we could look at other fixtures and maybe find something between what we had and what that was that would split the cost. So we have time to be able to work on that. The third one was the flooring, and that is flooring, $3,500. If you look at what you have here in this area, it's carpet, and that's what we have in the base bid. We did an alternate bid that can have its flooring, which is a real thin, for essence, it's carpet, but it's considered a resilient floor. But you can pour things on it, and it stands on top of it. It doesn't absorb the liquid. And you have time to then clean it up, and therefore you don't have the stains. So it's a real nice product, but it costs up for $3,500. Moving forward, later on in the project, I would probably come back and say, this brings value to this project and would be a good thing. And you can pay for that out of your contingency and not bond that. And you don't have to make the decision today. You can make that decision 6, 8, 9 months down the road. And then there was a alternate number 4, a courtyard, and I'm not sure if everyone's even aware of what we did. At the very end of the project, I called this family and I said, I've got an idea for a real nice courtyard. And let's see what the alternate bid is, so that if it comes in, the project's in, you want to do it, you'll be able to do it. Well, it came in at $155,000. It's very similar to a piece I did at Paducah Middle School. So you've got a little stage with a seating area, risers for the students to sit on. On the back side of that, you've got a map of the United States with some more seating for kids that have a lesson plan. And behind that, there's no little seating area. And if you haven't seen it, I do have a little drawing I can hand out and show everybody. But again, I couldn't sit here and recommend the project 5% over budget for you all to proceed with that. But if we get down the road, then you have contingency at the end of the project with 3 or 4 months to go, 5 months to go, you could have that project if your contingency allowed. And we would be able to negotiate with them at that time for that price. And maybe make a change or two to maybe reduce it a little bit, but you wouldn't reduce it a lot. And then finally, which number 5 was the $40,250, and that was for the variable speed compressors. And that's an energy consumption issue. You have, each classroom has its own HVAC unit, its own compressor. Well, we have a 2-speed compressor. And when you go from a 2-speed to a variable speed, you increase your energy efficiency. And so that was a piece that would increase energy efficiency, thereby reduce energy costs. And so Mr. Russell asked us to get a price on that, and we did. I've since asked the engineer to do the value engineering on it to tell us what the payback is. So he'll let us know, is this a 4-year payback, is this an 8-year payback, 12-year payback, and then we would like to come back to you once we know what the payback is and be able to make a recommendation. We want to be able to implement that before shop drawings are done. And so we'll get shop drawings within about 4 to 6 weeks of this project being awarded. So we would have that much time to make that decision, whether or not you want to do it. So we want to find out what the value it brings to you in regards to the payback, because there is, I think, some significant energy savings with 2-speed to variable speed compressors.
Greg, what did you say the cost was on the cupola again?
I originally misspoke. It was $57,864. If you look at the last page and he gave you those 5 alternates are listed left to right. You see it? So it would be, that's this one.
See what's, I'm just talking out loud, so everybody else got thoughts or comments to make. What's hard to discern this BG3 versus this bid package is you can't line up numbers.
You are correct.
Okay. So I can't say bid package number 1 for site work because site development don't match up.
Let me help you.
So explain this to me, Lucy.
Well,
The problem is KDE only allows you to bid on certain lines like this. So,
If you can take it back to this, your original estimate. Is this not wrong?
so like that,
Trying
Trying to figure out where we're, we can probably match this better.
I've got something in my brief that's
Okay.
say
You
that
asked a
again.
question about that, which just need to understand it.
No, but while he was looking, I had just a novice question, and, you know, I try to be really prepared for board meetings, but not having looked at this before, I have to ask a novice question. On the lines where you have a company listed but there are no figures, what does that mean? Did they bid, did they not bid?
That's the ones that were talking about, they pulled plans.
Oh, okay,
And
thank
they
you.
were interested at one time.
Because of the delay.
They called it delay, they took other jobs,
or they just chose not to do.
chose not to bid.
Does everybody have a copy of the BG3 in front of them? And is it okay if I stand here?
I don't know. I just have to have it running my file.
Which one, what is the date that you're looking at?
6.
314 is the top listed, and then
Take this
the
one.
construction manager's 814. Okay.
That's 6. It's dated 6/22.
She's gonna make copies with,
That's it.
she's gonna make copies of the current one. It's got my chicken scratching up in the right-hand corner, so you'll be able to.
I'm going to tag on Dr. Suggs' question. Are there any of the companies that have blank areas that, because they were missing paperwork or something, you're going to come back and get number 1, or are those all going to stay blank?
Those ones that are blank,
Mhm.
they
They didn't bid. Okay, so they're going to stay that way.
They are plan holders that did not bid the project for whatever reason.
Okay.
We surmise, in talking to a few of them, that's because they filled their plate.
They got them stuck.
And others may have just chose not to bid for whatever reason.
I was like,
Kind of.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that helps. My question really was, how did they get on there to begin with? So you're saying if they took a copy of the plans, they ended up on here, and then if there's no bid there, it's for whatever reason?
How it works is that the construction manager issues the plans through the print house. And then contractors call the print house and say, send me a copy. So if they can purchase them, or they can pick up a deposit. So we know who the plan holders are. So they send that list to Neil and to our company, and that way Neil knows I got bidders. I don't have bidders, I need to make calls. I got bidders, and I don't have to call, I don't have to. So he had bidders, they just didn't bid for whatever the reason was.
And then there's a lot of other ones on there as well. Some of the trade package director, structural steel, they will typically get their, like Dodge or, some of the third tier companies, they don't have to pay for shipping and cleaning. So buying them is like total cost. We have a law, we code all of them. Make sure that it's worth.
I just have a question. Yes, ma'am.
I like the way Sally put it, an honest question, because I feel like it is a question, but I really just stopped it. When it says in combo,
Yes. If you go to the next last page, you see these combination bids, bid package 22, it has like, I can't read that first name. Danco says bid package 2, 4, 6, 9, and 11.
so they got all those.
They got all those bid packages. They did that. In this case, they were low. Okay? And if you look at Atlas, they were, State Electric did 15 and 16, but they weren't low. So they didn't get the work.
Okay, so they could bid more than one, but just because it's, when it says combo, doesn't mean that they were a low bid.
So when you look at the rest of the list and it says combo, that means someone did a combination bid, and that's where you go for the number.
And then my other question is, where, in which one of these does the geothermal work fall?
It's in the mechanical package.
That'd be 16 or 15? 14.
What's this?
Yeah,
14 mechanical.
He done it.
Okay.
So you go to
this right there. So he bid on the package, he bid on the dam and fire protection.
So then, okay.
You got the sprinkler and the mechanical.
For clarification, where you have budget, those are the ones that we're still waiting on, or,
Yes.
number 7, 13, 12, they just have budget, they're waiting on.
Okay.
We've got to re-advertise, and we have to bid those packages out. Kitchen equipment, elevators, and windows.
Elevators are not going here.
Well, there's a bid package for elevators. 13.
Conveyors.
It's a architecture construction. So the budget is. Those might, it's, you need to answer that, because I don't, the budgeted amounts, they're included in the, I believe they are. Figure, is that right? This figure?
Yes.
Those three budgeted items.
So if we go through here and just add the lowest bid on each BP, then
It's going to add up that number. It's going to be that number. You can't, where it says combo, you gotta go to the combos.
have you got any quotes we could look at from other jobs you've done as far as roofing? Since there's no comparison on here. I would really like to see how that compares to the project itself.
Well, what I can do, problem with that is that we have a special roof deck in construction where the asphalt sheet is going. So it's not comparable to other jobs. But what I could do is go look at the Clarkson job, which has the same roof on it, and see how much it's gone up. Keep in mind that job was 2005, maybe 2006. So I can start to see where it was and how it compares. I just let a roofing job in the last 30 days, but it doesn't have roof decking in it, and it's a single slide. If I can tell you what it cost. It was 27 squares, and the job was $360,000.
That's okay.
So I mean, I can. It's about $13 a square foot, and that was a re-roofing project, and this is a little over $13 a square foot, so it's competitive. I've talked to the roofer, and thinks we can do a metal deck with composite insulation with a metal surface, and he thinks that would save us about $120,000. I've got some phone calls to make with code officials to see if we can use that composite. So that's something that we're going to come back to you once we know for sure that we can do that. So we think we can, but you still have to award his contract, and then we'll value engineer it after. So that's one of the things we're already working on with him in particular. The other one that we thought was a little high was the steel package. It was about $100 million, and we would think like 750 to 800. I'm not sure what he had estimated, but that's what was in my eyes when it was 700,000 to 800,000. Talked to the structural engineer. He thought it was high too. One of the questions I asked him was, are we being held up by the joist manufacturer, Bullcraft, or those guys that I'm picking on Bullcraft, but there's other joist manufacturers. He said, no, there's 4 to 6 week lead time, so we don't have a big crunch. He goes, we just had a steel increase in price. Of course, you buy steel, you buy the panel. And so as it goes up, our cost goes up. So those were the two. Of course, the kitchen, I think we want to see some money back on the kitchen once we get some bidders. And I've worked on that myself today, trying to get some bidders. But any other questions? And then I'll try to ask.
I just got one quick one. So as we go through here for approval, do we have to approve the entire package, or can we approve most of the pieces and then reject a few that we feel are high and could be competitively bid?
Well, you can do that, yes, sir. You can, if you want to go through each one, you can. You can approve them all lump sum. You can approve them all but 1, 2, or 3. Yeah, however y'all choose to do it. The only one I would caution you at be selective, because if we don't get someone to bid it, it can actually go up. And I hate to say that, but it's happened so many times. Joe, I'm not sure how many times that's happened on projects you've overseen, but I've had it happen at least a half a dozen times where we were over budget. It was a reasonable amount, even though the dollar amount is large, the percentage is relatively small. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking at, to make sure. Once I get 10, 11, 12%, I'm saying, wait a second, where are we and what do we do? But 5%, those are pretty good numbers. They really, truly are. But there are some that we can look at. The structural steel that I talked, we had 4 guys pick up, 2 guys bid. So before we want to reject it, we want to make sure we're going to be able to get more bidders. Because if we can't get more bidders, it has no value. The roofing, we had 3 pick up, 1 bid. I talked to the one who picked up and didn't bid, and he says, I'm not bidding, regardless of you bid or not. And keep in mind, roofers are sort of regional. There's one in Henderson, he bid it. The one in Warrensville didn't bid it. Then we had to go to Paducah, Bowling Green, Louisville, Lexington. I think we had one picked up from Indiana, or was it Murphy?
Murphy, the Mason contractor. That's what.
Roofing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Roofing.
All of them, roofing.
Yes. It's an Evansville company that picked up. So it's not like 4 apartment guys where I've got 5 in each community. These commercial guys are spread out because they have to have a bond, the performance and payment bond. So it's not just anyone who can get it. So you have to be careful. Those are the ones that stood out to me. And I think if we can do this other deck and bring $120,000 worth of savings to you, I think that's even more value to the project. It reduces the amount that you have to carry. Do you all want to know how the numbers we received work in relationship to the BG3? Okay. I think they made a copy of my sheet that has my chicken scratching on it. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, I've tried to draw little lines with vertical lines, and I've got the numbers out to the side. And it becomes a little confusing, so I ran out of space. But site development, the cost opinion was $1,152,000. And keep in mind, we have a phase 1 and a phase 2. And phase one was 145,633, and we received bids on 1,291,535. So the grand total is $1,437,168, which means that we were 25% over budget on that particular line item. General construction, the budget was $7,697,280. If you look over to the right, you'll see some real bad writing, but that's $9,823,795, 21% over budget. Now, when you get to heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the budget was $2,701,510. That we received the bid for $2,497,000. Keep in mind, that bid included the line item below it, line item 4, of $1,196,383. So that bid package was actually 36% below the budget. So even though they missed the other ones, they were under on that to the bid side. And then the electrical work, the budget was $1,775,508, and it came in at $1,505,481, or 15% of our budget. So N&P came in under the budget. Everything else, unfortunately, was over the budget. And that's just, unfortunately, when you're bidding projects, this is how it works. You know, we can't, and Bill did the budget, he can't read how someone perceives the documents and what it's their perception of it. And on that day, when they bid it, that's what cost they're willing to do the work for. Doesn't mean that that's what it costs them to do it, but that's what they're willing to risk their bid bond, performance bond on to do the work. So we're at $15,263,444, or 5% over the BG3, which was $14,522,680.
I got a question. If and when we approve these bid amounts, but we want them to come back and do better on these numbers, that you're saying we can do that after they've been awarded the bid. What's their incentive to do that? What's their incentive to do that? They've already got the bid package, and you're going to ask them to come back and take the numbers down, but you've already awarded it at X amount of dollars. What's the incentive for them to do a better job? We would be thrilled for them to come back, and that would be great, but if you've already approved a bid at X amount of dollars, you can spend that amount.
If there's a product, they got like you, and there's one that's kind of equal value, they can get it for about the same dollars. They'll offer stuff like that. They want to get it and budget, make sure the project goes well.
Are they going to have to bring that information back to us for further approval?
Pardon?
Are they going to have to bring that information back to us for further approval if they change the specifications?
They can't change the specifications unless we allow it. And so they first would come through as shop drawings, and then hopefully at that time, my staff and I would catch if they submitted a product that's not approved. And once we do catch them, then they have to submit a product that is approved. But to go back to your original question, their incentive is basically that they have to deal with the construction manager and architect and engineers for the whole project. And if they start off not dealing with us fairly, then they know that we might not deal with them fairly moving forward. So that is the crux of it. They are a little bit in the driver's seat, but on the same token, they still want to have good relations with us because they know that we can control their money flow. They know that we can make them redo work if we don't think it meets the specifications. So it's not their incentive to be difficult at the front end of the project when we're trying to do some value engineering, even though they have the contract. And you are correct, they've got some power there, but we still have some power as well. And so we're not going to needlessly will that power. We're going to be fair, but we want them to be fair. And so how I would proceed with this, if you all approve the project tonight, we would, before we sign the contract with each one, we would start negotiating with them about value engineering, what items that they could bring to the table, and that process can start before contracts are signed. And on some of them, we might be able to have some things worked out before the contracts are signed, so that the change orders would be signed shortly thereafter.
So we can approve the bid package, and that doesn't mean the contracts are going to be signed tomorrow based on those particular numbers.
They're not going to be signed tomorrow, regardless of what you like. I mean, it's going to take some time to process them. They've got to process them. You all have to approve them. Frankfurt has to approve it, and then I mean, you got at least 10 days before the contract's signed. They're minimum.
By the time you get the bid purchase order, all that stuff,
So, I mean, it's what the time of the essence is that if you can and you feel comfortable that you're still getting good value for the project, and I think that you are, we move forward, then that allows Mr. Nance the opportunity to start doing his bond work and getting his paperwork in place to sell the bonds. In the meantime, allows him to move forward with the paperwork he has to do to get it to Frankfurt. And then we can then start making calls to these contractors and start the value engineering. We can't finalize value engineering until after they have signed their contract. But we can certainly start it.
I understand. I kind of talked to my board here and figure out where we are in timeline, because my impression is this is all new to us today. You all had a chance to look at it for a couple of days, and you all are going through it. Even Ms. Morgana's had today to look at it. We're just now seeing it. So for us to process this and come to a point that we're ready to award these bids when they're dollar amounts, even though it's 5% over, may take us a day or two to get to that point. I'm not saying we won't get there, but I'm not sure that it will be today. But I don't know that yet. That's my talking. That's my personal. I know I see Jennifer's got a question, and I know Dr. Sutton does too.
Yes, I just wanted to know, out of curiosity, how confident do you think, or have you been in the past, when you go back to these vendors and try to do the value engineering? Is that the correct term?
Yes, ma'am.
How confident are you, or how successful have you been in the past?
So we've always been successful to some degree in getting money out of the project. The question is how much, and more importantly, did we get close to $1 for $1? And generally, you're not going to get $1 for $1, but we want to get very close to that. And we've been very successful in doing so. We're not going to go and maintain the value that we currently have on this project and get, $500,000 or $600,000 out of it. That's not simply going to happen. But I think we can maintain the value of the project and maybe get $150,000 to $175,000 out of the project without hurting the value that you currently have in it. Anything greater than that, I think it would be short-sighted, and I think it would potentially hurt the value. Maybe your biggest number that you can get out of the project is to go from the 4 inch to the 2 inches of the insulation, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to get your value out of it, so I don't think it's worthy of proceeding. I mean, you made that decision. It's a long-term decision. It was a good decision, and for the money, I don't see value. if you were sitting here and you didn't have the money to do the project, I'd probably say we have to do that. It's not should we or you value in it, but you've got the money. And I think your money potential's probably gone up substantially since we have a budget. And so you've gone up greater than what the project went up. And so from that standpoint, I think you're still in a good position. So I understand your reservations, but what we don't want to do is drag it too long where we have a rate increase, and that rate increase can be more detrimental than awarding these bids.
I'm thinking days, which, okay, Dr. Sutherland,
Well, to follow up on what Ms. Baird said, I think even though it's 5%, this is the first time we've looked at any of these figures. First of all, to understand what they mean, and then to make decisions about how much, over is okay and how much it's not. We're looking at it for the first time. So I agree that I'm not ready to make a decision on this tonight. I'd like to hear more from everybody on the board, what you think, and I'd be willing to, in a few days, get back together on this. The question I had was, when you were talking about the 3 or 4 options that we had, number 2, I didn't write down because you said by statute that didn't apply to us. But then when you got to number 3, that sounded a whole lot like number 2.
Well, the difference is if you do competitive negotiation, there's a statute that we all go by that says that if your project's over budget and it exceeds the available funds, you can go into competitive negotiation. And competitive negotiation is I'm going to take the low 3 bidders of each bid package, and then I negotiate with them. So I have to have a meeting with them. I come up with a list of items that can be value engineered out. Then we go back, we put post-bid addendum out, and we take a bid from them. Reduce your bid by X amount of dollars to not provide X material. That's competitive negotiation. And I don't remember the order of what we have, and what I'm suggesting to you is that if you sign a contract with somebody, I'm only negotiating with them. So it's not competitive across the board, it's post-bid negotiation.
So the difference is we would have to award bids, accept the bids, and then move forward with that one company.
Correct.
Rather than the other way was looking at below 3 bidders, is that what you said?
Yes, for each bid package.
you would negotiate those before you sign the contract.
Well, we'll start the negotiations before we sign the contract.
Before you sign the contract.
But typically, you sign the contract, you do the negotiation, and then you get a low price. So we're going to move forward.
Tracy, did you have a question?
Brad.
Brad?
Yeah, I do have one, maybe a few outside the meeting. So take, for instance, a company like Danco. Over $5 million of the project is going to Danco. While we have leverage on our side, is it acceptable for us to say that we will give Danco this amount of work if they cut their costs by 5%?
Well, we're not saying that to them. We're not saying to anyone how much you cut it by. What we would say to them is, look, we're getting ready to sign a contract with you. Can you bring a few items to us that we can value engineer? And by the way, what do you think we can get out of the paper exchange? In the meantime, you all approve the bids, going through the process. Frankfurt still has to approve it. Before we sign it, we would hope to be at a number that would be acceptable.
Right. And I understand what you're saying, how things usually work. I just want to know if that is something that we have the power to do. Like, can we say we are going to award you this job contingent on you reducing your prices by 5%?
No. And we can't get 5% out of it. And maintain the value. So you have to juggle the value of the project versus the changes that are going to be proposed. And some changes aren't worth taking. Other changes are great value. So we want to make sure that we get value of whatever changes we make, not just get the 5%.
The 5% is the overall project. If you got a percent here and 2% here and 150,000 there, you could get some of these to add up to maybe 3%.
Well,
but you're not going to get 5% off of everybody.
You're going to get maybe, again, $150,000 to $170,000 out of this project before you start hurting value.
I think you want to do, but I understand what Brad's asking, but we need to try to get some percentage, some lower numbers out of every piece of this.
I mean, to me, it just makes sense that if we're awarding them 3 or 4 pieces of the job, that there's some kind of incentive for them to be awarded that much. And I just have I'm uncomfortable about this negotiating after we award the bid. You know.
Well, legally, that's all we can do. Okay. We're pushing the envelope by trying to negotiate them before they sign the contract.
I mean, that's also, they've already kind of gave you the economy scale. You notice they bid several individual packages. Well, the value of all of those individuals added together is more than what they did on the combo bid, but maybe the combo bid, the shared supervision, everything like that, where if they were bidding, only got the flooring, they've got more.
Well, in fact, they were high on flooring.
Yes.
So they reduced their price to get the flooring. They were high by $700,000 in research and grant.
Well, and on the general construction, if I'm not mistaken, that includes the general trades and the structural steel, right?
Well, Danco would have those 4 or 5 bid packages.
On this VG, I'm talking about, under this general construction.
Yes.
Does that include the general trades and
Yes.
structural steel? Right. So that's all part of a package that is 21% high or whatever.
That may not be Danco's though. So all the bid packages, since we were talking about Danco, they've got bid package 2, which is the general construction package, 4, 6, 9, and 11. Structural steel is like 5. So they don't have it, but it's part of it. They would have masonry.
Right. Is masonry part of the?
Masonry would fall under this general construction.
Right.
Yes.
Which is the category where we're well over budget. And Danco is the majority of that category. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
But the other contractors bid on it.
Right, for higher than
And the other higher than
So like in masonry, there's almost no value I can get out of masonry without changing 8-inch block walls to 6-inch block walls. Otherwise, there's nothing I can get out. We can go to a cheaper brick. And you might not see the color. So that's the only things I can value engineer out of.
I'd like to take a poll amongst our board members on thinking of an action, and I want to see what you all think first. Ms. Tracy, do you feel ready to vote on this evening?
Well, what concerns me is how are we going to have a conversation? We could just have a special call meeting, right? And then we can ask questions. But as far as the options that he's laid out, aside from just getting rid of all of them and starting back over, I'm not sure what options we have. You see what I'm saying? So I would like to hear what Mr. Nance says about the finance before I even make that decision about not making a decision. I'd rather hear the finance end of it, because I think that's a huge piece, obviously.
Ms. Jennifer?
I prefer a couple of days to let it sink in and study it a little bit more. And I'm anxious to hear what Joe said as well.
Number 7?
I just feel like that we've already done this 2 or 3 times where we have had things come to us on the night of the board meeting. And for whatever reason, whose delay it was or whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable with that, with a topic I'm not as comfortable with as I am curriculum and instruction. That's a topic that we can discuss and pretty easily make a decision on because we have experts right here in the district to help us. And I know our construction folks are great people as well, and they've been working with you on the administrative team. But I just don't feel like I would be doing what the public would expect me to do, to make a decision with just 30 minutes glance at this tonight. And I'd like for us to really try to hold not only this topic, but to any topic, to make sure we have all the materials prior to the meeting. And I know we're doing a lot better than when I first came on board with that. And I know when the bids went out, I know there was a quick turnaround time, but I checked even at 3 o'clock today. I thought even if I had them an hour or 2 before the meeting to look them over and have my questions ready for you, you know, it takes a little while just to be able to learn to read the table and read, you know, the document. So I really don't feel comfortable voting on it tonight, but I think within the next few days, I will.
Mr. Grant?
I agree with waiting, but I also agree with hearing what Mr. Nance has to say before we actually make that decision.
So can we check where we are on our agenda here? Is that okay, Chuck? Can you give us general information without us recessing or calling into finance court?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do that, and then we can come back to this and decide whether we want to make a decision this evening or if we want to table this, and then, but we'll still have your information to do that. Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
You have 2 handouts. Okay, I guess I just wasn't close. There you go. That's good. Okay. You have 2 handouts in front of you. Now, I want to first refer to the 4-page handout that says plan of financing. And I really want to cut to the chase and go to the last page. If you recall, we've been going through this process for a few years now of determining what's our bond potential. We had the additional nickel. We now have the new state budget. The state has matched our nickel, so it's in the budget. We also had an additional offer of assistance from the School Facility Instructional Coaches. So if you look at page 4 of my plan of financing, as of today, our total bond potential is $63,705,000. And I think, all along we've been talking about the $60 million range, and the fact that we got a new budget, a new offer, we're about $3 million better than the last time we talked, which is good. The thing I will point out is of the $63,705,000, it's important to note that $5 million of that total is bonds that will be paid directly by the School Facility Instruction Commission. So, assuming we proceed with this project, we will definitely use the state's $5 million first, and then the balance will come from our local bond. So, that really should be no surprise to the board. Really, just a good update that we're a little better off than our last projection. Now, secondly, if you refer to my 1-page handout, up to this point, we've been talking about the construction bids that came in. Well, I think it's important that we now, in order for you to kind of look at making a decision, what's the total budget look like? And my 1-page BG1 form, which was an item on your agenda, this sets forth the total budget if you proceed with the project as presented. So first I'll point out the top left-hand column, total construction cost, $15,263,000. That's what's been presented to you by your construction manager. Now, as you all are aware, in addition to our brick and mortar construction costs, we have all the other costs associated with the project. Briefly going down the line item, you got to pay your architect as per your agreement, to design the project, get it ready for bid, you have to pay your construction manager. The two line items that are related to the financing, a relatively large number, the bond discount. Just to refresh your memory, when we publicly bid your bonds, we allow up to a 2% bond discount. Same thing if you went and took out a mortgage for your house and you were quoted a rate with points, that's the same thing. So what happens is, when we bid your bonds, we typically will have 4 to 6 underwriters bid on your bonds. They will bid an interest rate that they'll charge, and they'll also bid how many points or what's their discount. So we add the discount with the interest that's charged to determine the best bid. And the reason I want to explain that is a not to exceed number. When we actually bid your bonds, it could come in less than that. So that $356,000 would be a maximum amount, but once we bid the bonds, it could be substantially less. The fiscal agent fee, that's where we come in to put your financing together, to bid your bonds. That also pays for the bond attorney's fee to make sure that it's done in accordance with the IRS regulations so that we do receive the tax-exempt financing. One thing you've also heard being talked about tonight is that we have a contingency in this project, and we're required to start out with a 5% contingency. So you can see a relatively large number. So going into the project, we will have a $766,000 contingency. And I think Greg had mentioned some of the alternates that you might be able to pick up through the contingency. And also we would pay for any equipment furnishings out of the contingency. And then going on down the line, we also have certain geotechnical and surveys, testing, plan review, incidental costs. So when you look at your grand total project cost, we would be looking at an $18,077,000 project. And on the right-hand side is how we're going to pay for it. And again, comparing it to my bonding potential, we're going to use the $5 million of the School Facility Construction Commission bonds and then $12,845,000 of our local bonding. And the one thing I will point out, the very first line, and it says SFCC cash requirement. In order for us to take advantage of the state's $5 million of bonds, we're required to put up $232,381 of restricted cash. The city does have that in escrow that's set aside, waiting to be used for the project. So really, it's a pretty good deal. We put up $230,000 of our cash to get $5 million of their bonding. So I wanted you to see, number one, from a bonding standpoint, we're in great shape, and we would be going forward. So from my standpoint, moving forward, if you desire, it is a thing that we can do. I will point out that it seems like every time I come before this board, I tell you that we're near historic lows in interest rates. We are, again, right now, we're selling 20-year bonds at about 2.75%. So we're doing 20-year financing at less than 3%. I don't think rates are, we were here to talk about the Fed possibly raising rates. I don't see any big move in the very short term, but again, if rates do start going up down the road, it's going to cost us more to borrow money than it is today. So now is a very good time to move forward with financing. So I wanted you to see that we're in good shape. I think it's important to see your overall budget in addition to your construction costs. And I think from my standpoint, I think it's the board's decision. Do you have value in the project as bid? And if you determine that you do, and from a financing standpoint, we move forward.
Any questions for Joe? Very good information. Thank you, Mr. Yates. And so, moving back to our construction approval process here. I think I hear from most of our board members that if we could table this decision for 1 day or 2 days possibly, for us to be able to go through, digest all this information, and then come back with possibly a few more questions, maybe with Neil and with Craig. Do it as we do more of a working meeting. We can come back as a special call meeting. If there's any additional questions after we've had a chance to go through this, we can ask those questions that night and be ready to vote on and to make a decision within a day or two at our next special call meeting. Do you all believe we can come up with an answer sometime this week? I really personally don't want to delay this any longer. We've already had a delay by KDE, and that's going to put us off any more. Ms. Morgan, do you have thoughts on this issue subject before we make a motion to go forward here?
Sure. I've listened to the comments and questions that you all have had, and was able to meet with the Codell and OBS around 4:30 and Joe Nance as well. And the word that I've heard a lot tonight is the value of the project, and I think the board's taken a very deliberate effort to try to find a great, put together a very energy efficient school, not extravagant. Obviously, we don't have all the bells and whistles in the project, but something that will help us in our energy efficiency down the road. And I don't have any problem being able to meet tomorrow night or Wednesday night if the board would like to get together to make a final decision. So I'm available whenever you all need to.
Can't do tomorrow, but you have had 24 hours notice, but you can do Wednesday.
And I agree, I don't, the information is what the information is. It might not be exactly what I wanted to hear either, but, I feel like that just letting it sink in a little bit and digest, it's important that we still look forward at moving forward with the Spotsville project. And so I'm definitely available on Wednesday or whenever you all choose to meet again.
So I'm going to make a motion that we table approval of the construction bids and table the Finance Corporation meeting until Wednesday, the 21st of September. We do that as a special call board meeting with the intent of making the decision and moving forward with this project. And that's my motion. If I can get a second, please. Thank you, Mr. Brad. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
May I ask if Neil and Codell, Craig, if you all would be available on Wednesday as well in case there's additional questions, or would you rather me field questions from you all and then send them back to you all?
Well, I'll have to look at my schedule when I get back to the office. I can email you in the morning. Well, I can't do it in the morning. I'll be gone in the morning, but I'll just have to check my schedule. If I've got something scheduled, I'll try to move it so I can be here. So I'll do what I can to be here.
If you gentlemen just let me know. And so, board members, as you're looking at information, if you see specific questions, please phone my way so I can please correspond email with the gentleman.
Can I ask a question? Does Joe need to come back Wednesday night so he can do his part?
I think that if he could help us with the script, we can do the, you're more than welcome to come back. But if you feel comfortable with the script and going through the Finance Corporation.
I did have another commitment on Wednesday that I'll definitely get to send you to make sure. And again, just to refresh everybody's memory since we don't do this every time. Whenever we borrow money, Finance Corporation to sell bonds. You all are also members of the Finance Corporation. So we'll have a separate meeting of the Finance Corporation. We'll put on your other hat, and then we'll adopt a second resolution to actually issue bonds. So pretty simple. It's a two-step process.
Actually, we have two special call meetings. We have two regular. Is there a time?
I'd like to ask that we do it as early as possible. I have a class that night.
Class that night.
What time's your class?
We do. Do we make it 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock, especially if we get whatever questions we have. Tracy can't do, she can't do Wednesday or you can't do
I can do
4.
Wednesday, it just would have to be a 9 to 5.
Could we do it at 4:30? Get here, get our ask questions. If there's anything to go through that, we can work through it. We promise we won't take a vote until 5 o'clock.
We start at 4:30. That's fine with me. I mean, I just won't be here.
No, but hopefully by the time we get through some of this process, we'll be here for that. Excuse me. Because we can do our finance committee part and do everything else while we're working on this, correct? Are you okay with that, Kirsten? That's at 4:30? Here, 4:30? Okay. Is that good with you, Dr. Seth? And Brandon? Good, thank you. All right. And we appreciate you, gentlemen. I'm sorry I didn't ask you all before we decided to do that. Trying to get this done as quick as possible. So, and we'll get the questions that we have to you all just as soon as it comes to us.
Madam Chair, before we move forward, I think just another comment.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Neil from Codell has been with us through our last couple projects, and we very much appreciate the work and the time that you've given to Henderson County Schools. And we'll welcome John Hagan to become a part of our family. Appreciate that, but I sure wouldn't want Neil to leave tonight without letting you know how much we appreciate the work and CTE. CTE project went so well in the parking and all of that restructuring. And we appreciate very much your work and working with you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We're sorry we wear you out, but you deal with us well. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to athletic report.
That's actually going to be me tonight. We received a message from Keith Morgan that he went over the weekend and attended a wedding, and he's had some plane delays trying to get back home, and so he has attached the athletic report and just wanted to comment to see if you all had any questions and I could ask him to get answers back to you. Otherwise, the report is just given as it's written in the board packet.
Board members, any questions regarding the athletic report? Moving on to instructional coaches. Ms. Jo.
You have in front of you, in part of your board document, a tweaking of the job description for the former curriculum specialist. And the proposal is to now rename them as instructional coach. Many times I hear the board members say that we need to do what we say and say what we do. And that's pretty much what we're doing here. The focus for former curriculum specialists has really become more like an instructional focus, teaching and guiding our school through instructional pedagogy and practices, the how-to, not so much the what. With the Common Core standards and with the standards and with the curriculum that we adopt, that teachers are always
able to supplement, but we do have like a basis of curriculum materials for our district that our schools adopt through a CBN process. So I'm proposing and have redesigned the job description to change the name to Instructional Coaches, which is very common, even more so common across the state. Now, you see those terms, that name used more often than curriculum specialist. Any questions? Comments? You should see a predominance of methodology, practice, instruction in their tweaking of the wording.
So a lot of the terms that you're using now that we've used both when you're reworking your curriculum, the new standards that we talked about. It's like this has been updated from terminology of what we do and what we say in the last 2-3 years.
Right, it's updated. This describes their work more accurately. And I presented it to them even just last Friday for like a final review so that they could be sure that that's exact. But it was also really taken from, originally from a document that we presented to the board April of 2015.
Ms. McGinn, do we need approval of this change or is it no action required on that? Okay. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to old business. The second reading of policy revisions in Chapter 3.
There's a couple items in your board packet, and one speaks to the hours of duty, and the change that we made in that policy was to certified employees shall not leave the school grounds instead of saying their job assignment at any time. And we requesting a second reading for that, both in our certified and classified, and then also along the following procedures from the regular board meeting do not require the second reading, but I just listed those as well as for information. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, I request approval of second reading of policy 3.1332 and 3.2332, please.
Any questions regarding that? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the second reading of the policies as listed. Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Moving on to staffing, Ms. Ginger.
Yes. With staffing, the process goes by March 1, you give your initial staffing based on projected numbers. By May 1, you give based on further numbers that you've gotten from early enrollments. And then you look again at your September 1 enrollment, and by September 15th, give to the school's SBDM councils their final allocation. This is the number of teachers that are allocated to each school based on their enrollment. This does not include any of the administration, nor does it include any special education teachers. This is based on each school's enrollment for K through 12. So you'll notice in 2016-17, our initial allocation was 316 and a half teachers, which was a change of 13. We were down 13 and a half teachers from 15-16. When you looked at our September 1 enrollment, we had added 3 teachers, and whenever I submitted this to the board, we had added 3 teachers. We've since looked at another enrollment, and we've added 4 from our original allocation. So we are now at 320 and a half teachers, which is overall down 9 and a half teachers from 15-16. So we're at 320 and a half allocated teachers for our schools.
Any questions for members?
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Appreciate it. Moving on to new business, district facilities plan.
This is the memo that Mr. Steiner put together for us and to request utilizing KSBA services to facilitate our district facility planning process. He shared the information with you at the work session. And it lists in there that the fee for the service would be finalized from KSBA, but currently it's listed 11 to 15 schools at $7,000. So we're requesting your approval to move forward to contact KSBA and make a final selection for our facilitator, and then we're able to start the process and move forward.
Board members, any questions about that regarding that? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Sugg, and I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Foreign trade zone, Ms. Beth?
At the work session, we talked about, or I explained to you the request we received from the River Board about the application to activate their foreign trade zone status. And that requires the board to consent to issuing a letter stating that they don't have any objection to that. So before that can be issued, the board has to take action to authorize that that letter be issued. So that's why it's on the agenda for tonight to take formal action.
I think we all discussed this the other day and thought that there was no downside to this, but there was an upside to Henderson community and bringing more people in. So, any other questions?
No, I'm just making it clear that Cindy said at the work session that it's not a loss or a cost or anything to us, just so that that's known, that it doesn't
cost us.
financially, it doesn't.
Okay. I make the motion that do we need to instruct Ms. Bird to draft this letter?
They actually sent a form letter that I emailed to each of y'all before the work session.
Okay.
So if you just make a motion to approve the issuance of a letter stating that there's no objection.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Dr. Sugg. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, and we will get that letter sent off to them. First reading of policies and review of procedures from chapters 6, 7, 8, 9. Ms. Morgana?
Sure, there's several policies in there, and I think I'll just ask if you all have any specific questions. As you saw in there, like some of the changes were very simple. It just said superintendent, and then we might have put slash and or designee up to a complete procedure, which was changed and documented in your board packet because of how we document what we're doing. We're using a different form or a different format, and so we made sure that we included in there as well. I do also want to note that at the next meeting, there are still a few policies in each of those chapters that will still come back to you. They're not included in here for policy changes because we're still working with KSBA on some of those. So this isn't, I would say this is 95% of them, but there's still a few pockets that we're looking at. Does anybody have any specific question on a particular policy or procedure?
I just have a question. Why the cell phones? Why was that taken out?
If you tell me which one you're...
Oh, I'm sorry. Transportation.
Transportation.
Chapter
6. And which number are you on? 6.2. 6.2. appropriate information shall be disseminated annually. Oh. No, I don't have that one.
6.2.
Oh, AP 12. Procedures.
At the top it says use of communication devices.
I was gonna say, maybe Jeff, if you can go for it, Jeff. I'm still trying to find the ball.
Well, number one, drivers aren't allowed to use cell phones unless it's an emergency. And what this was saying is that the district provided cell phones. So the district doesn't provide the cell phones on the buses.
Just radio.
We have two-way radios. And so since we don't provide cell phones, we don't really need that in the policy and procedure. So, but anyway, only time a driver is allowed to use cell phones in an emergency situation, and that is while the bus is stopped. That's what that does.
It was just interesting to me because that's how we,
Communicate, yeah. But it's saying that the district would provide a cell phone on each bus.
We provide radio.
Yes, there it is.
Any other questions or details about any of those? Okay. Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve first reading of chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9. There will be changes, some changes made in the future. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sugg. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
I'd like to know if we're back on science.
I don't have time to ever sign my daughter, know where I'm at here.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Moving on to consent agenda. It looks like there are 12 items on consent agenda. Anybody that needs to be pulled or discussed? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed. Thank you, Mr. Brad. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda approved. Here's where we get slowed down. Working budget, Mississippi.
I'll try to keep us on schedule here.
You're fine. I'm teasing you.
This is you have the working budget in your packet. It's the same budget that we presented at last week's work session. It's required to be approved by September 30th of each year. You see the planning assumptions on the first page. I'm not going to read through all of those. Those are exactly the same as presented last Monday. Point out on the second page, the fund summary. If you look at the general fund, if you compare that to the working budget last year, it is $4 million less than the working budget last year. Didn't show that in here originally, but I just wanted to point that out. Everything else is the same. The salaries are 79% of the expenses. Fund 2 will be reduced by a grand total of $332,621 in grants that we'll be receiving. And then I have the payment schedules for our bond series. Any questions or comments?
You said salaries were 79%?
Yes, they are 79%.
We've been working on trying to get that down. What was it at its highest with Stanley?
They were at 81.4 at one point.
Robin, would you roll back to that part where she said that about our budget, working budget again?
Yes. When I go back to compare 2015-16 working budget, that's not on this paper. It's just something I had written down. I just wanted to point out that it went from 76.7 million down to 72.8.
Okay. I just think that's very noteworthy, and I'd like for you to say it again.
$3.9 million.
Thank you. Aaron, do you want to?
We are making progress. We're making a lot of progress, and we're being very conservative. Starting to, put a little bit of money in the contingency. We're still at a same amount. Any
The
questions or comments?
city's always very conservative when she uses numbers that are given to us by the state for seed funds and for anything like that. I will tell you, share with you, after being on this board for 8 years, that what the state tells you to begin with, sometimes and what you end up with are two different, Jesse's right, are two different numbers. So I appreciate what Cindy does. That doesn't always mean that's what we're going to end up with, and we still have to work very hard. So
We did use below forecasted amounts this year because of what happened to us last year, so I was very conservative in seeking forecast.
we appreciate the work that you do. Just, we need to make sure that our public understands that. So we need a motion to approve the working budget for the 2016-2017.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Mr. Brad. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Treasurer's report.
And the treasurer's report for the month of August, we had total receipts of $4,243,884 and total expenses of $4,566,074 for a net decrease in all funds of $322,190. Questions on the treasurer's report?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I request your approval for our treasurer's report as presented by Cindy Cloutier.
For a motion to approve the treasurer's report as listed. Thank you, Mr. Brad. Second, Ms. Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Paid warrant report.
The paid warrant report covers the period of August 16th through September 19th. It includes payment to board food service for $175,698.44 for food. Top Mifflin for $111,768.04 for books. Preferred Construction for roofing projects, $94,767.60. Illinois Computer Resource for $48,995.63. AA Services for work at Spotsville School, $47,367.18. Prairie Farms for milk, $45,944.24. RBS Design for work at Spotsville and CTE, $45,750.91. North Coast for roofing supplies, $37,914.39. Renaissance Learning, $36,646.85. Rogers Group for construction work at Spotsville, $32,020.24. Extreme Network for software, $31,015.63. Tex Health for licenses, $24,717. Kimi for our workers' comp installment number 9, $21,598.38. Piazza Produce, $21,241.66. CDW for computer supplies, most of that SPM, $21,028.85. And Codell Construction for work at Spotsville School for $20,245. All of our payments above $20,000. Total payments for this period of $2,867,844.26. Any questions on the pay warrants?
Hearing none, members of the board, I request your approval for our paid warrant reports as presented this evening by Cindy Cloutier.
Look for a motion to approve the action to pay the bills. I'll take a motion from Dr. Slade and a second from Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Be advised that we have been notified of any personnel actions. There's no action needed on that item. Dr. Slade, are we ahead or behind schedule? All right, I look for a motion to adjourn this fine meeting. Your second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion